For those who crave the chill of the unknown, welcome home. This is Blood-Curdling Nightmares, your portal to horror. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and summon more nightmares by ringing the bell.
The first story takes place towards the end of 2012. For our thesis work, mine and my teacher's Sway had to visit a forest. I'd rather not say exactly which forest, for contextual reason. I was there with my teacher and a senior brother. The forest was quite far from the city, about 10 kilometers away. The road was long and rough, and riding a bike was difficult. Anyway, we went there to study the tribal hunting practices, how they hunt, how their methods work, and we interviewed some of them throughout the day. After a long day of talking, I requested one of them, "Brother, can you show us a demo? Just show us how you hunt." They agreed. "Come on, let's go," they said. They took us to an open area, but to get there, we had to walk through a graveyard. Most of the tribes in that area have become Christians now, so it was a Christian graveyard. There was a narrow path running through it, and we were led down that path. For the next half hour or so, they demonstrated several hunting techniques. Then, as evening approached and the light began to fade, we started heading back the same way through that same graveyard. It was just before dusk. There were 3 or 4 tribesmen walking in front and 2 more behind us. In the middle were my teacher and me, another student. As we passed a bell tree in the middle of the graveyard, I noticed something strange. There were 2 red ribbons hanging from the tree tied beautifully, carefully. Between them hung a small cloth bundle, also red, twisted and suspended like a charm. The moment I saw it, I felt hypnotized. I couldn't explain it. I just started moving toward it, slowly, as if drawn by something. My only thought was to grab it, to touch the ribbon. Just as I reached for it, the 2 tribesmen behind me yelled, "Brother, don't touch that. Don't touch it." Their shouting snapped me out of the trance. I stepped back. Confused, I asked, "Why not? What is it?" They repeated firmly, "Don't touch it. Just keep walking." Once we left the graveyard, I asked again, "Okay, now tell me, what was that?" One of them explained, "Brother, those 2 red ribbons, between them, 2 spirits were tied. One of them escaped recently. What you saw, the small cloth bundle, meant one spirit was still trapped." I was stunned. I laughed nervously. Wait, are you telling me spirits can be tied up with ribbons?" They looked serious. "Yes, brother, there really is such a thing." I asked, "Whose spirit is it? Why is it bound?" They told me a man from their village and his wife had been possessed. When they were freed, those spirits were trap-sealed between those ribbons. "But why is there only one cloth bundle?" I asked. They said, "Because one spirit already escaped. A few days ago, a village woman came here to gather leaves. She saw the ribbons, got hypnotized just like you, and touched it. The spirit went into her. She's been unwell ever since, and still hasn't recovered." I asked, "Why don't you tie it again then? Seal the spirit back?" They replied quietly, "We can't, brother. The healer who sealed them, he died 6 months ago. Without him, we can't do it again. That's why the woman's condition is getting worse." Then they looked at me and said, "If you had touched it, the spirit would have come for you. You would have been possessed. And then it wouldn't end well." That shook me. Honestly, I was scared. Seriously, I still wonder what could have happened if I had actually touched that ribbon. After that day, we quickly left that forest. Even after returning, none of us had the courage to go back there again. But the very next day, our thesis supervisor suggested we go back to that forest and continue our research. We couldn't bring ourselves to do it. Instead, we traveled to a different forest about 30 to 40 kilometers away. Now, what I'm about to tell you was something the forester of that area told us. Whenever we enter a new forest, a guide is assigned to us so we don't get lost. These guides know every trail and every safe spot. So, we followed our guide deep into the forest, and at one point, we asked to be taken to a specific area. But the guide refused. He said, "Sir, you shouldn't go there." We asked, "Why not? What's the problem?" He replied quietly, "Sir, I'm just a junior officer. I can't explain. You're outsiders. You came from far away. Please ask the forester about it instead." We didn't push it further. He was clearly uneasy. So, we skipped that part of the forest and went somewhere else. Later that day, we sat down with the forester in his office. I asked him, "Sir, that guide you sent, why didn't he let us explore one side of the forest? There was a pond there, and a thick patch of trees next to it. We wanted to go, but he wouldn't allow it." The forester leaned back and said, "It's a good thing you didn't go. That place, that pond, it's called the Ghost Pond." I asked, "Ghost Pond? What's so special about it?" He explained, "That pond has water all year round. It never dries up no matter the season. People say it's been like that for hundreds of years. A long time ago, even kings used to come there on elephants to bathe. That forest has been sacred and strange for over 500 years. Then he paused and continued, "Years ago, a boy went to bathe in that pond. He went under and never came back up. Ever since then, strange things happen around that pond. Forest officers, when doing surveys at night, often report seeing the black shadow of a boy running around, them-darting through the trees." He added, "Sometimes it jumps into the pond and comes out again, over and over, as if reliving that moment of drowning. It keeps doing this until the officer realizes it's not a child, but a spirit." I was stunned. Has anyone tried to stop it? Some ritual? Some priest? He shook his head. No one ever tried. No one ever dared. That spirit was there then, and I believe it's still there now. We couldn't stay the night in that forest. Maybe if we had, the forester would have taken us to see it himself. But I'm not sure if I would have wanted to see it.
This incident happened to me involving one of my grandfathers, who passed away in 2007. Before his death, he shared several strange and chilling stories with me. Among them, this one has haunted me the most. Calling it just an incident might not be enough. It took place a long time ago when my grandfather was still a student, probably during or before the British period, around 1947 or earlier. Back then, education was rare. Students would come from far-off villages to attend school, as schools were few and far between. Because many students came from distant places, the headmaster had arranged a hostel right behind the school. Let me describe the layout. The entire area was triangle-shaped. The school stood in the middle, with the hostel directly behind it. Beside the hostel was the headmaster's residence. But here's the eerie part: just behind the hostel, there was a church, and beside that church, there was a Christian graveyard. Yes, a graveyard right next to the hostel. The hostel rooms had windows that directly faced the graveyard. It became a rule among the students. No matter what, those windows must be shut before evening. No one ever left them open after dark. This story took place during the end of winter. The final exams were almost over. My grandfather was a senior, preparing to leave. One day, the students requested the headmaster for a small picnic on campus. They wanted to cook in front of the hostel and enjoy the day. The headmaster agreed. As per tradition, the seniors did the cooking. First, they served the juniors, fed them, and sent them off to rest. Then the seniors sat down to eat and have some fun maybe even a little campfire. My grandfather's roommate was a junior. After feeding him, he was sent back to the room. A little later, while the seniors were still eating, a loud, piercing scream echoed from the hostel. Everyone dropped their plates and rushed toward the sound. The scream came from my grandfather's room. When they arrived, they found the junior his roommate laying face down next to the bed. His face was turned away, and he wasn't moving. Even more unsettling was the window beside the bed. The same window that was always closed after dusk, it was wide open, and yet there was no wind, nothing. Still, the window was banging back and forth on its hinges like something was pushing it. My grandfather was the first to enter. He quickly shut the window and rushed to the boy. When he turned him over and placed him on the bed, he noticed something terrifying. There was a mark on the boy's throat. But it wasn't a cut there. Was no slash, no gaping wound. Instead, it looked like someone had grabbed his neck tightly, 5 distinct finger marks pressed into his skin. And strangely, those marks weren't dry or bruised. There was fresh, liquid blue oozing out, just enough to show that whoever held him had blood on their hand. After they cleaned the boy up, they found something strange. His throat wasn't actually cut. There was no open wound and no blood coming from his mouth either. After splashing some water on his face, the boy eventually regained consciousness. When he came to, he was confused. He asked, "What's going on? Why are you all screaming? And where did all that blood on my neck come from?" Everyone was shocked. They told him, "Your throat wasn't cut, but there was blood. What happened to you?" The boy took a breath and explained, "When you sent us to our rooms after feeding us, I came in and noticed something odd. This window was open, but I had closed it earlier in the afternoon. I didn't understand how it had opened again. You were all outside, so I thought I'd just shut it again." He continued, "I went to the window to close it. The moment I touched it, a cold, bloodied hand grabbed my throat. The hand, it didn't feel normal. It felt like it was melting, as if the skin was dissolving and the blood was still fresh. Whoever it was grabbed me tightly and tried to pull me out through the window. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't scream. I genuinely thought I was going to die. He kept pulling me toward the outside. But he couldn't get me out. The window had grills, metal bars, so he couldn't pull me through completely. That's when I finally managed to scream. I blacked out after that." After hearing this, everyone realized how terrifying the situation had been. The boy was still shaking in fear. No one wanted to stay in that hostel anymore. Later that night, nearly all the students, 15 or 20 of them, gathered at the headmaster Sir's house behind the school. They explained everything to him. The headmaster, though clearly disturbed, said, This sounds like something truly paranormal. For tonight, all of you can stay in my house. We'll figure out what to do in the morning." The next morning, the headmaster, along with our another teacher, Henry Sir, and the respected church father went behind the hostel to investigate. What they saw chilled them to the bone. Right behind the room where the incident had occurred, and just beneath the window that had been mysteriously open, the soil in the graveyard appeared disturbed, freshly dug, as if someone had been trying to bury something in a hurry. They called more people. When they dug into the disturbed soil, they discovered a horrifying sight, a half-decomposed, partially melted corpse. It was quickly identified as the body of a powerful and influential man who had gone missing many days ago. Whether it was for money, inheritance, or land, it appeared he had been murdered and buried secretly in the Christian grave, yard likely because the killers believed no one would ever check there. When the church authorities examined the corpse more closely, the father confirmed something disturbing. The body had been recently placed there. And worse, the man was Muslim. Someone had dumped his remains in a Christian cemetery so that no one can find the Muslim rich man's body. The priest said something even more chilling. When the spirit tried to grab the boy's hand, maybe he was trying to tell him something who had murdered him, or why. Perhaps he was desperate to reveal the truth, but the boy couldn't understand it. After that, the church performed several rituals and spiritual rites with a Muslim wise person. They sealed off the hostel entirely. So after that, no other paranormal events ever happened in that hostel.
Before starting the story, I would like to say that no one in my family, except me, believes in ghosts or spirits. I also didn't believe in them as a child. But the story I'm going to share today completely changed the way I think. My father is a government employee. When I was in class 4, he was transferred to a small, ordinary city. For privacy reasons, I won't mention its name. After we moved there, I started hearing that many strange and paranormal incidents happened in that city. Of course, I didn't believe any of it. For the first 2 years, everything was normal. In fact, we never experienced anything remotely unusual. But then, in 2003, something happened. One day, my uncle, aunt, and cousins came to visit our house. I had a great time playing with my cousins all day. That night was a full moon night. Not every city can truly capture the beauty of the full moon, but in that city, it was different. The full moon nights there had a unique, almost magical quality. So we decided to go to the rooftop after dinner and chat under the moonlight. Around 10 o'clock that night, we all went up to the roof. We carried charger lights and flashlights, but because the moonlight was so bright, we didn't turn them on. As we sat and chatted, my eyes suddenly drifted toward the water tank near the edge of the roof. For a brief moment, I thought I saw someone peeking at me, just a quick glance, and then they vanished behind the tank. The city was considered a safe place, but no place is entirely free from the risk of theft or trespassing. I thought maybe someone with bad intentions was hiding on the rooftop. I immediately told my cousins what I saw. They laughed it off and said I was overthinking, but I wanted to prove I wasn't imagining things, so I took one of the flashlights and went alone toward the water tank. What I saw behind it I was not prepared for. There was something sitting there, wrapped in a white sheet. I couldn't tell if it was a man or a woman, but their legs were clearly visible underneath the sheet. And those legs, they were unusually long, not just long and humanly long. No person's legs could ever be like that. A portion of one arm was also visible, and it was just as bizarre, stretched out and unnaturally thin. Both the hand and the legs looked distorted, as if they didn't belong to a human at all. But what terrified me most was the face. It was unlike anything I had ever seen. It wasn't a human face. It wasn't even an animal's. It was something else, entirely distorted, hideous, and wrong. It looked straight at me. I was standing at a distance, but even from there, I could feel its presence. A horrible stench filled the air-rotting, sickly suite. I was sure it was coming from the thing. In that moment, every horror movie I had ever watched came flooding back into my mind. But this wasn't fiction. This was real right in front of me. I froze. I couldn't move. I stood there, paralyzed by fear for at least 10 seconds. Then, something inside me snapped. I knew I couldn't stay there another second. With all my strength, I threw the flashlight at the creature and ran toward my cousins. Breathless and panicked, I told them everything. They rushed back to the water tank with me, but by the time we got there, it was gone. There was nothing behind the tank. Just the flashlight, lying there with its beam still shining. My cousins dismissed it, saying it was all in my head. Maybe I had imagined it. But I know what I saw. I've told this story to many people since then. Most of them either didn't believe me or tried to rationalize it away. But this was no illusion. I saw it with my own eyes. Once, I even shared this incident with a priest. After listening carefully, he said it wasn't just a spirit, was something bad, something dark. Since that night, I've experienced other strange things in my life, but never again have I been as scared as I was that night. That was my experience.
Thank you for embarking on this journey through the darkness with us. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and summon more nightmares by ringing the bell.